Let's go. Let's go. Let's go!
Okay, so guys, there's a stall just outside the merch room, and we're selling raffle tickets and other stuff. So, like, come here, yeah.
Go, boys, hey, come on!
Well, hello and welcome to Frank Holohan Soccer Complex for Saturday afternoon NPL Men's Victoria action. Dandenong City and Melbourne Knights going head-to-head in a Croatian derby of significance for both clubs, albeit for very different reasons. Just heard there a minute's silence held in memory of Vlado Chakarud, long-time Melbourne Knights member who passed during the week. And it is Melbourne Knights who head down to the southeast this afternoon, all but officially relegated from the top flight of Victorian men's football. They need a win to keep their mathematical prospects of survival still alive, albeit more or less everyone accepting that the deal is already done for Melbourne Knights. They're taking on their fellow Croatian side in Dandenong City, who have big aspirations for the remainder of the season. The door has been left wide open for Dandy to jump inside the top six this afternoon, thanks to Hume City's shock defeat at home last night against Melbourne Victory. It means a point for Dandy City will be enough to see them inside the top six with just one game remaining of the NPL Men's Victoria regular season. A win would do them a world of good as they would move in pole position heading into their last game of the regular campaign. So a big occasion for both sides. Oscar Rutherford with you here today for the call. Both coaches have made 3 changes to their starting 11s, which played last time out, as we see our central referee making sure players, or the teams rather, are facing the right way. Dandy City, of course, coming into today, still led by Bill Theodoropoulos on the sidelines, as Mick Tolios is away. They will be inside the top 6 at the end of the day if they can pick up even just a point from this afternoon's game. 3 changes to their 11 see a couple of big name inclusions. Kenny Athieu and Jack Webster, the 2 outfield inclusions. See Kenny Athieu standing on the ball, ready to get play underway, alongside Piers Clark in goal. So it's a handy trio of inclusions to have at your disposal if you're Dandenong City. And at the whistle of our referee Daniel Woodiot, we are underway at Frank Holohan Soccer Complex. Dandenong City and Melbourne Knights. What could be the last match in which Melbourne Knights are still not yet officially relegated from the top flight of Victorian men's football. Could also be the last match where we see Dandenong City outside the top 6 this season, as they look to secure a second consecutive finals berth. Melbourne Knights, they've made 3 changes of their own to the starting 11. Darcy Anastovsky, Emmanuel Walder-Georges and Jack Morton all back into the starting 11. There's no Tom Werndl or Joseph Lettieri, nor is their last week's scorer in Melbourne Knights' 1-1 draw against Hume City. AJ Inia, he signed for Bangkok FC during the week, in what is one of a number of moves that we're expecting to see in and out of Melbourne Knights over the next few months as they prepare for life in the second tier of Victorian football. They can postpone that reality if they can secure a win this afternoon, albeit a real tough task before them as Dandy City look to control some of the early ball. Latham looking to send the ball forward towards Bauer. Clearing ball works out for the Melbourne Knights. Attempting the turn was Tommy Semi in the middle of the park. Didn't quite pan out. Well, it's looking to be a fairly rough and patchy pitch at Frank Holohan Soccer Complex this afternoon. See the big sandy spots in the middle where the most use of the football happens. Gaku Anabas spreading it to his centre-back partner Jack Webster. Ball sent inboard, and there's a nice first touch from Thomas Giannakopoulos. Still going was Giannakopoulos before eventually being forced into retreat. Ali Sesnik makes his run down the right-hand side, and the cross is behind for a Melbourne Knights goal kick. This match taking place concurrently to the other NPL Men's Victoria fixture this afternoon out at Paisley Park. Altona Magic and Port Melbourne going head-to-head. Regardless of the result today, Melbourne Knights' fate could be sealed if Altona Magic were to pick up just a point. And as things stand, Altona are in pole position to pick up more than just a point. They're 1-0 up at half-time as we see an early attempt fired well off target by Will Bauer. But at half-time at Paisley Park, Altona 1-0 up against Port Melbourne. That result, if it were to stand, would seal the current bottom 3 teams who we've been expecting to go down for a number of weeks now. It would confirm their relegation, Melbourne Victory, Port Melbourne and of course Melbourne Knights. Goal kick sent into the middle of the park by Gabriel Matti. That one almost falling the way of Walder-Georges. And the speculative attempt forward will allow a first touch of the ball for the afternoon for Pierce Clark. Back in between the sticks this afternoon, having lost his spot for the last few weeks to Matthew Maram. Maram starts this afternoon on the bench. Sesnik sends it forward to Jamie Latham. Here is Tommy Semi. Little toe poke disrupted Semi's run, but the forward continued his move. Retreats to Thomas Karlovic. And all the way back to Matty in between the sticks. So there, the ball played forward by Emmanuel Walder-Georges, one of the beneficiaries of Melbourne Knights' struggles this season, having been given a bit of a run in first-team football this campaign. It's been a high-tempo opening few minutes to this one. Sesnik looking to release Atharinos. Neither team able to spend a whole lot of time in possession in the opening minutes. That ball forward will find its way all the way through to Inaba. And Dandy City will restart from the back once more. Plenty of early possession for the home team, Dandenong City. Coming into this week's game off the back of a disappointing 1-1 draw at Port Melbourne. The potential that could have cost them dear, but Hume City's form being, well, even worse than Dandenong City's at the moment means that those kinds of slip-ups may not end up costing Dandy City. If fail to pick up at least a point today, though, may well. They'll be determined to pick up all three. Ball kept in by Atherinos. Looks central towards Athiu. Oh, no shortage of ambition early in the game from the man back into the starting lineup. That one, though, well off target, and Gabriel Matthew will be grateful as he heads behind. Ball sent up to the halfway line. Walter Georges is nearby. Instead, it's Giannakopoulos who sends it forward for City once more. Throw-in board taking quickly, where Atherinos had a little bit of space, having gotten clear of Stephen Lawless. Well won in the middle by Yovchevsky. Now Athiu for Dandenong City, releasing Giannakopoulos. Considers the early ball and opts for the more patient approach with Corey Sewell. Back to Gaku Inaba, who's found himself on the score sheet for the last 2 weeks. Central defender, showing that he's got a few strings to his bow. Those his only 2 goals in NPL Men's Victoria this season. Have been quite a high-scoring team this campaign, Dandy City. 41 goals in their 24 games. Only the top 4 teams in St Albans, have scored more than Dandy City. Right now, I'm just not quite finding that connection in the final third. Yovchevsky throws himself at that one. Latham flicks on towards Athiu. Ball falls fortuitously for Jamie Latham. Starting to see Dandy City assert some authority on this game. Spending the vast majority of the time in possession, although Will Bauer has just straight offside. Melbourne Knights, as mentioned, coming into this afternoon's game off the back of a 1-1 draw against Hume City. That result, of course, doing their opponents today, Dandenong City, a big favour. It's showing some real fight and ambition from a Melbourne Knights team that has lacked it all too often this campaign. Going forward here are Melbourne Knights. Walter George is competing, but Danny Kim got there ahead of him. Lofted forward by Morton. Eventually works out between a combination of Morton and Yovchevsky. Now Webster up to Atherinos. Kim returns it to the wide man. Instead sent forward by Lawless, and Melbourne Knights have the chance to counter. Walter Georges' pass is just behind Dunlop. There's space here for Jamie Latham. Closing down the space is Karlovic, but Latham continues his run, uses Athiu, back to Latham. Jamie Latham fires the shot. In the way was Yovchevsky. You heard the appeals for handball. Referee not interested. Once again, Tommy Semi on the ball looking to launch the counter. As the supporting run from Dunlop goes the more direct approach. This is Bramwell. Bramwell looks centrally towards Anastovsky. It's been a competitive first 10 minutes at Frank Holohan Soccer Complex. Dandy City just taking a little bit of control of the general play, but Melbourne Knights far from overawed. Number of lesser sighted players in the starting 11, even more so on the bench for Marijan Cvitkovic. Likes of Lockie McDonald, Aidan Vuletic, Alex Tsakopoulos, Aidan Griganovic, Nayan Nair, and Philip Martic. They're the 6 names that Cvitkovic has at his disposal in this contest to come off the bench. Bit of a mistimed pass there from Karlovic, but the Knights find a way clear, and you hear the scream in pain from Webster. He and Bramwell competing for the ball, and Webster coming off a little bit worse for wear. Referee happy to treat it as a fairly innocuous and accidental moment. Webster just taking a moment to compose himself before he gets back to his feet. Jack Webster, one of the inclusions this afternoon for Bill Theodoropoulos. Did get on the score sheet last time these two teams met earlier in the campaign. What was a 2-0 win for Dandenong City. Webster scoring the sealer after Jamie Latham put Dandenong City ahead early in the second half. Here is that man Latham. Turning one way then the other, eventually uses the support of his fullback in Sewell, and opts for the patient approach back to Inaba. Carrigan there to send that one clear. Sewell in towards Athieu, had too much power on the cross though. Webster up towards Athieu. Carrigan is there ahead of him though. 2 players formerly associated with Melbourne Victory, Ben Carrigan and Kenny Athieu. That time it was the Melbourne Knights defender winning out. Yodchevsky's run looking towards Bramwell, but Danny Kim played the role of disruptor to good effect. There is a potentially cruel bit of irony in Altona Magic's impending result against Port Melbourne. That game's still at half-time. 1-0 the score in favour of the hosts Altona, and Anthony Frangi, I understand, the scorer of that goal. Someone formerly associated with Melbourne Knights, of course. This is Karlovic. Goes along with the cross towards Semi. It's awkward for Valley Sesnik, who's been deputising at fullback into a decent level as well. Valley Sesnik again winning out in that battle. Another chance perhaps for Melbourne Knights. The combination between Anastovsky and Morton ends out at the feet of Bramwell. Again, there's a physical 50-50 battle. Karlovic is under pressure but did well to get the ball clear. Really has been a breathless start to this game. Both teams throwing everything at the other. Charging forward now is Dunlop. Went for the cross but was denied by Sewell. And Danny Kim there to send the ball back towards the halfway line. Dandy City, of course, coming into today now in pole position to secure a finals berth. Not necessarily off the back of their relentless, impressive form. Somewhat stumbled their way to the door of the top six, albeit having dealt with a really tough run over the last 6 weeks. Games against Heidelberg, South Melbourne, Avondale and Oakley. And really to come away having not lost any of them reflects that even though they haven't been picking up all the wins, Dandy City, they've been playing more than well enough to match it with the very best in this division. Here's Giannakopoulos. Well, you saw his idea. You can imagine his eyes lighting up as the moment came towards him. But I don't think he'll be too eager to get back and check out the replay on that one. Dandy City were to get the win today against Melbourne Knights, it would almost guarantee that the only way they'd miss out on finals is if they lost to Melbourne Victory next week in the final game of the campaign. A likely already relegated Melbourne Victory, that is, and Hume would of course also have to go and do the business at Churchill Reserve against St Albans. Sliding challenge comes in from Anastovsky. Could have been quite a bit worse, but no meaningful contact with Kenny Athieu. This is Sesnik. Once again, powering down the right-hand side. Cross inside is good as well. Picked out Jamie Latham, similarly to Giannakopoulos before him. The attempt is well off target. This a head-to-head in this Croatian derby that is, over the course of the respective clubs' history, been certainly the better has been won by, or the larger amount of games I should say, has been won by Melbourne Knights. 12 meetings in total, 12 competitive meetings that is, 7 of them won by Melbourne Knights. That win for Dandy City earlier in the campaign against Knights is their first in 5 meetings against the team from Summers Street. Very much the younger sibling of Melbourne Knights in the Victorian Croatian football scene. Not that it's looked a whole lot like it this campaign, and it's very much Dandy City carrying the Croatian flag in towards September action. That is, if they can get the job done over the next couple of weeks. Here is Giannakopoulos again. Almost had his pocket pinched by Darcy Anastovsky. Nicopolis turns clear from Morton and uses his veteran central defender in Webster. Bowers moved over to the right-hand side, swapping flanks with Atharinos. Cross inside from Cessnick. Gets a second crack at it for Cessnick. Almost a third, but the toe poke from Carrigan avoids further threat to the Melbourne Knights goal. This is Semi. Has Bramwell, and you saw the space that Walter Georges had ahead of him. Well, it's a tough game to get any rhythm going, you sense, for either team, not just the intensity with which they're both approaching it. Both teams very much wanting the win for their respective ambitions. The pitch not helping either. Tough to play smooth passing football. Here's Anastovsky, though, for Melbourne Knights. Has a number of options in the middle, goes himself, doesn't get past the first man. Try again, Darcy Anastovsky, and that attempt well wide and over the frame of goal. Approaching the halfway point of the first half in this Saturday afternoon Croatian derby. 0-0 remains the score. Dandenong City and Melbourne Knights. Semi and Athiudu battle. It's Semi who wins out, and there's an opportunity here to spring forward, led by Walter Georges. Cross comes in from Dunlop. Webster is again the man in the right spot. Hughes' touch allows himself to head it towards Atharinos. Tim Atharinos, central towards Latham. Morton cuts it out. Anastovsky happy to leave it to Dunlop. It's a nice first touch from Walter Georges. And continuing his run in the middle of the park, the youngster. Certainly a vibrant figure in that part of the pitch for the Melbourne Knights. It's a clever exchange which sets away Lawless down the left-hand side. Now Semi back out to Lawless. Not sure how intentional that was, but it's fallen to Bramwell. Fires just wide of the post. Well, it's tough to make clean contact with the ball. It nearly worked in Melbourne Knights' favour. Kieran Bramwell had a real positive impact off the bench last weekend. That one, though, just wide of the target. Bramwell, one of two players who's aiming to get into double figures in NPL goals this campaign. He's on 9 heading into this weekend. So is Kenny Athiu, the striker at the other end. Contesting for the ball right there against Jack Morton. Here is Atharinos. Couldn't quite work his way past a number of Melbourne Knights bodies. And Karlovic sends it all the way to the other end of the pitch. Dunlop again. Might have heard in that last passage of play a cry of frustration when the pass towards him was intercepted by Atharinos. And he might be called into defensive action in a moment or two once more, Fraser Dunlop. Clever play by Dandy City. Sewell in behind. Cuts onto his right, Corey Sewell. Fakes the shot, uses Atharinos. Tim Atharinos off the crossbar and out. Still alive is Bauer, but the offside flag. Well, that's as close as either team have come. Really clever bit of interplay down the left-hand side. Combination of Latham, Sewell, Atharinos. Getting Sewell in behind before teeing up Atharinos. But the crossbar spares Melbourne Knights. Slight delay with the restart as Daniel Woodiot tries to keep tabs on everything, getting plenty of feedback from the different parts of the pitch, our central referee. Assisted today by Matteo Caligaro and Benjamin Howe, as well as Terry Constandelos, the fourth official. Unconventional throwing style from Pierce Clark to ask Valley Sesnick to send the ball forward. Karlovic lets it run. He might end up regretting that. Recovered just well enough to get it clear of Atharinos. Jovchevsky gets it out to Dunlop. Walter Georgis just about keeps it in play. Here's Athew in space in the middle of the park. Goes with the reverse ball towards the run of Latham. He heard the shout from the man in the number 8 shirt. Once again though, Thomas Karlovic dealing effectively with the ball. He's had plenty to do, the Melbourne Knights central defender. And the referee's whistle will relieve some pressure on the Melbourne-Croatia backline. Referee heeding the shouts for handball. Game has just slowed down a little bit in the last few minutes. A couple of pauses for a variety of reasons. Allow both sets of players to maybe regain a bit of their breath. Mentioned the number of attacking threats that Dandenong City possess. Coming up against a defence which has proven rather vulnerable throughout the campaign in Melbourne Knights. They've just kept the one clean sheet all season, Melbourne Knights. That was against Port Melbourne right back at the beginning of the campaign. Conceded more goals than any other team in NPL Men's Victoria this season. Melbourne Knights, 60 in their 24 games. Seeing the pressure that their defence has been under, but up to this point they've dealt fairly well with it, as did the Dandy City back line with that Darcy Anastovsky half chance. Few is crowded out by a trio of Melbourne Knights shirts. Tommy Semi's gone to ground, holding his ankle. Looks his shin maybe a bit higher up the leg, Semi. He's getting back slowly to his feet. So referee will confirm that the forward player is good to continue. He hobbles away from the scene of the crime. And eventually play will get back underway with a Corey Sewell throw. Readying the long throw routine this time, Dandy City. Corey Sewell feeling that they're close enough to goal to give it a go. Sends it inside. Few is the nearest to it. Keeps the attack going using Danny Kim. Sewell sends it back into the penalty area, headed out as far as Sesnick. Ali Sesnick gets the cross in. Few with the header. It was a daring move, but in the end the finish fairly comfortable for Gabriel Matty. A wonderful cross from Sesnick, putting plenty of pace on it as well. Few had been able to get just a little bit more width on his effort, may have been able to get past the goalkeeper, but Gabriel Matty survives again. And Stovsky losing out thanks to the pressure of Kim. Carrigan heading it down to Lawless. Shout from Bill Theodoropoulos on the Dandy City bench is too easy. He's not happy with the ease with which Melbourne Knights have been able to pass the ball at times and move it forward. And now the call is for patience. Latham looking to accelerate into midfield. That pass towards Bauer, cut out by Dunlop. Well, Jovchevsky and Morton weren't on the same page as to who was going for the ball. Very nearly opened the gates for Latham, but Lawless benefited from an awkward bounce, and now Anastovsky looks towards goal once more. Dunlop with the cross, headed by Anastovsky. That a really difficult one for an attacking player to manoeuvre their neck around the ball to direct it on target. And you saw that very much the case for Anastovsky. Well wide of the mark. Corey Sewell has been heavily involved in the opening 34 minutes of action. That ball not able to pick out a teammate though. Sewell, of course, joined Dandenong City from Melbourne Knights. One of several players with connections to both clubs. Now Dunlop, turning away from Sewell and looking inboard. Morton and Sewell go back and forth, and in a battle between former teammates, it's Corey Sewell who gets the last laugh. Dandenong City earning themselves a throw in their own half. Hughes' header towards Latham, but always favouring Carrigan. Georgis cut down by Inaba. And a pretty straightforward decision for Daniel Woodiot. And that will pave the way for Melbourne Knights to get the ball inside the penalty area. A real opportunity for the visitors, as we see Jack Morton standing over the ball. And is this the bit to be the way, perhaps, for one of these teams to open the scoring? A dead ball situation. It's been a physical and uncomfortable encounter for the first 35 minutes for both teams. Melbourne Knights have certainly been second best, but they could find themselves ahead if Morton can get the delivery right. It wasn't too bad. The chance is still going. Bramwell with the header. Melbourne Knights lead. Well, they've had to absorb a number of chances this afternoon. The dead ball opportunity presented itself. Morton with a lovely delivery, and Kieran Bramwell getting it over the line. And the Knights trying to live to fight another day. They've got themselves a lead at Frank Holohan. And things very much feeling a little bit more uncomfortable now if you're Dandenong City. It's Kieran Bramwell's 10th goal of the campaign. Melbourne Knights have taken a big step towards causing real consternation at one of their fellow Croatian clubs. If they were to lose today, Dandenong City, and their fate would be right back out of their hands. If Hume City were to win against St Albans, it would be Hume playing finals. Even a draw for Dandy City should be enough to see them get there, as long as they match Hume's result on the final day. Things not going according to script if you're Dandenong City. Webster attempting the long ball, Semi getting his body in the way. We've got around about 7 or 8 minutes remaining in the first half. Dandenong City will be feeling a little bit hard done by if they were to go into the break 1-0 down. It's very much at the stage of the season where an impressive loss doesn't count for much if you're Dandenong City. An undeserved loss doesn't do them any favours at all. They need points if they are to play finals football for the second consecutive season. Right now, though, they're trailing the Knights. Here is Bauer for Dandenong City. Has Atharinos in support, goes himself, Will Bauer. Still Bauer. Cross inside, Athieu with space. Kenny Athieu! Dandy City level! King Kenny has 10 for the campaign. And as soon as they went behind, Dandy City muster a response. You could almost hear a collective exhale of relief amongst the Dandy City supporters behind the goal. Kenny Athieu wasting no time in matching his opposite number for reaching double figures. Had a paddock of space in the end, did Kenny Athieu. A really excellent run forward by Bauer, which caused the danger and wreaked havoc for the Melbourne Knights defence. And Even though he couldn't get it done at first time of asking, Kenny Athieu, it fell favourably for him. And Dandy City quickly drawing level. So a first half that's very much taken a couple of twists towards its conclusion. There's still more than enough time for either team to make the next move. Latham's header could set away Bauer once more. Charging through the middle of Frank Holohan Soccer Complex again is Will Bauer. This is Latham now. Jamie Latham makes space for the right-footed attempt. Didn't fall for Atherinos, and Kieran Bramwell back supporting the defensive efforts for Melbourne Knights. Sewell finds Bauer. See, Kieran Bramwell has been energised by his goal. All the way back with the support. And doing enough to force it out for a throw. Long throw in again for Dandenong City. How they'd love a second goal before the break. Head into the rooms with the lead. And the game much more heading in the direction they would have imagined before kickoff. That's an awkward one for Dunlop. Attempted clearance does just enough, or it looked to have done. Atherinos goes down. And the decision is given. It's a penalty for Dandenong City. Daniel Woody, it just took a moment to consider his options. There was certainly contact as Atherinos made his way into the penalty area. Well, when you win the ball back in dangerous areas, throw yourself forward. You're inviting the kind of challenge that might prompt the referee's whistle, and indeed, Dandenong City, just a handful of minutes after going behind, had themselves a golden chance to go 2-1 up, and we're still not even at half-time. Kenny Athieu looks to be the chosen taker. For 2 goals in a couple of minutes. And to help Dandenong City take a massive step towards finals football. It's Kenny Athieu. Dandenong City lead. Kenny Athieu, 2 goals in a couple of minutes. And after falling behind to a shock opener from the Melbourne Knights, Dandenong City have got things right back on track and are marching towards a second consecutive finals campaign. They still have plenty of work to do before that's sealed up. But Athieu's 2 goals have done them a big favour. Goal number 11 for Athieu of the NPL season. And well, for Melbourne Knights, having survived plenty of early pressure from Dandy City to snatch a goal at the other end, they thought things were going just about perfectly. They've been very quickly reminded of what Dandenong City can do in the attacking third, and in particular, what Kenny Athieu is capable of. Well, the momentum all with Dandy City at the moment. Bauer, central towards Latham. We head into 2 minutes of first half stoppage time. And really at the moment it looks like Melbourne Knights just clinging on to the 2-1 scoreline. Kim trying to close down the space. Karlovic did just enough. Now Anastovsky spreads it to Lawless on the left. Lawless's pass cut out by Kim. Latham had no runners making their way into the Melbourne Knights half, so Dandenong City forced to conserve the ball. And as we head towards the final 60 seconds of the opening half, things looking a little bit more like most would have predicted before the game. Dandenong City in the lead. And looking like getting to the halftime break with their advantage intact. It's another physical coming together between Bauer and Karlovic. Walter Georgis towards Semi. Falls into the path of Tommy Semi. Not a player you want running at you as a defender this stage of the first half, but Yaku Inaba did really well, got his body in the way and drew the foul as well. Referee's whistle will allow Pierce Clark to take this, and with it, the halftime whistle goes. Dandenong City, having fallen behind to a shock opener from Kieran Bramwell, have very quickly righted the ship with a Kenny Athew double. The big man up top for City, scoring first from open play, then from the penalty spot. And so heading into the second 45, Dandy City's march towards finals is on the right track, and Melbourne Knights, well, their impending relegation moves 45 minutes closer. Half time at Frank Holohan Soccer Complex.
Let's go!
Well, hello and welcome back to Frank Holohan Soccer Complex. Dandenong City leading Melbourne Knights 2-1 at the break in a game which will do a world of good for Dandenong City's finals ambitions if they were to come away with the win. Tommy Semi with an early chance for Melbourne Knights as he flashes a shot wide of the post. The news coming in at the half-time break. The Altona Magic have run away from Port Melbourne in the concurrent fixture, and as a result Melbourne Knights relegation, which we knew was coming for a little while now, has been confirmed. Melbourne Knights will play next season in the second tier of Victorian football. First time in over 60 years that the Knights have been relegated. Didn't end up too badly that previous time in 1963 when Croatia were relegated from the Victorian State League. They rebounded the following year, winning the championship and back up into the top flight. Never been relegated since. Of course, the closest that they've come, or one of the moments that they came particularly close, was 8 years ago now when they had to survive a promotion relegation playoff against their opponents today, of course, Dandenong City. On that day, a Kim Harris hat-trick saved Melbourne Knights as they won 3-2 to preserve their top flight status. A firm coming together between Bramwell and Bauer. You heard the thud of the contact, and Bramwell certainly copping the short stick. He'll get some medical attention. The man who scored the opening goal for Melbourne Knights. Was the contact to the head and face of Bramwell that did the damage. See the medical staff doing their assessment and checking there's no blood or anything of that nature so that Bramwell can continue. And we'll do all the relevant testing to, well, before we confirm that the strike is good to play on. Thankfully, looks to be one that Bramwell is shaken off, so that will pave the way for Jack Morton to stand over this free kick. It was from this sort of situation that Melbourne Knights scored their opening goal, and Morton crossed into the box. That one eventually was bundled over the line by Bramwell. Bramwell won't be involved in this piece of play as Morton is closer to goal, may well consider a direct shot. Top left corner. Plenty of space towards that part of Pierce Clark's goal. It's Morton, that's where he heads. Narrowly wide, but the final touch seemed to have come off one of the Dandenong City defenders. So Morton will swing in across towards the penalty area. Morton's cross into the area is a good one. Could have come off a hand on its way through. The follow-up shot was well off target. The referee dismissing the appeals. The arm against the body when it was struck. So Dandy City will get us back underway with a Pierce Clark goal kick. Their opponent's fate sealed. Dandy City, they will be very much looking to get the job done. This is Bauer. Fires an attempt to right down the throat of Gabriel Matti. Bauer, who was an instrumental part of the Dandy City fight back in that first half, making a couple of powerful runs through the middle of the park, and the Melbourne Knights defence didn't really have an answer for it. The direct and powerful approach that Will Bauer can bring. That ball falls into the path of Jovchevsky and sent forward by Morton to Anastovsky. Corey Sewell got wrong-footed and, as a result, dragged down Walter Georges and will be taken down in the name, or in the book rather, of Daniel Woodiot for a yellow card. Well, despite their fate being mathematically sealed with the game earlier this afternoon, Melbourne Knights certainly not lying down for Dandenong City, continuing to make life uncomfortable for their hosts. We prepare for another Jack Morton delivery. This one will be met by Kenny Athieu. Carrigan returning it out to his midfielder on the right-hand side. Attempted run through is cleared away by Kim. And Walter Georgiou will recycle possession for Melbourne Knights. Direct approach is pursued by Matti. That one too much on it though for Anastovsky. Here's Clark, who's had plenty to do in the opening minutes of this second 45, more so than in the first. Once again on duty to collect the ball and send it towards the halfway line. Sesnik. Matthew always trailing Karlovic. Now Matthew sending it upfield, be collected by Inaba. Out to Sewell, now Kim. Bill Theodoropoulos asking for his team to just show a little bit more patience and composure on the ball. It has not been a game where either team's looked totally comfortable in possession. Combination of their respective approaches to the game, the pitch, the dynamic, the importance of the game, particularly for Dandenong City, all making things a little bit uncomfortable. This is Giannakopoulos. Now Sesnik spreads it to Bauer. Bauer charging into the middle of the park. Atharinos hoping to continue the run. Carrigan's clearance only as far as Athieu. Now Sesnik. Goes with the left towards the back post. Flick on header, kept in by Latham. Or in fact, it had just gone behind the line, I believe, but referee happy to allow play to continue. Perhaps the flag was actually raised for offside, so that's why the advantage was paid. Of course, if Dandenong City were indeed to secure that 6th position, the most likely outcome would be a first week elimination final against Dandenong Thunder. So a Dandy Derby final could well be on the cards. Dandy City can uphold their end of the bargain. And assuming Dandenong Thunder don't make a most unlikely of charges towards the top 2 finish. Thunder who play tomorrow against St Albans. Ball to release Bauer. Gets there ahead of Lawless. This is Will Bauer, the curling effort into the top corner. Dandy City have 3, acrobatics on display. And Will Bauer adds his name to the score sheet. Well, a goal that will do a great deal of good to ease any of the remaining tension felt by players and staff alike for Dandenong City. A wonderful finish that was from Will Bauer. And that third goal from Dandenong City will make it an almighty task for Melbourne Knights this afternoon. As the sun continues to set in Melbourne's southeast, Walter Georgiou hoping to reignite Melbourne Knights' prospects in this game. Probably fair to say that Will Bauer deserved a goal for his efforts in the first half. Played a major role in both of those Kenny Athieu goals. Pass forward by Yevchevsky didn't pan out as he'd planned. As I was saying before, the potential Dandenong derby to come in the first week of finals, as we see Atherinos has run down the left-hand side. Thunder playing their game at Churchill Reserve against St Albans tomorrow. That one of two games in top flight of Victorian men's football to take place. South Melbourne, Avondale, the other one in what is a big afternoon of football. The penultimate weekend in the men's competition. Here's Bauer again on the right-hand side. Cross in board, met by the head of Karlovic. Melbourne Knights' final game of the season. It had the potential to mean something depending on how the results panned out today, with Altona overpowering Port Melbourne. The meeting between Melbourne Knights and Altona Magic will just be deciding final positions, not a matter of survival or relegation. And Dandenong City heading to the home of the Matildas to play Melbourne Victory. They'll be grateful that their opponents won't have anything to play for next week either. And should, all things going according to script, be enough to seal City's spot in the top six. It's been a really impressive rise from Nick Tolios's team, of course, promoted in 2023, straight into finals at the first time of asking last campaign. Didn't get the result they were after, well beaten by an Oakley Cannons team, which you can understand losing to, particularly at that stage of the campaign at Jack Edwards. They'll hope to go one better this time round. And a tantalising prospect of a Dandy derby to contest to George Andrews Reserve. This is Latham losing out to Walter Georgiou, who is now met by Bauer. See the hold he has on Bauer's shirt. Referee seeing nothing to prompt his whistle. And eventually, belatedly, according to the Dandenong City players, they have themselves a free kick. With that stoppage in play, Melbourne Knights will be able to make the first couple of substitutions this afternoon. And the young reinforcements in the form of Lachlan McDonald and Alex Tsikopoulos are the two players to see out the remainder of this one. It's the end of the afternoon for Thomas Karlovic and for Fraser Dunlop. So a couple of defensive changes, as it looks as if Tsakopoulos is going to head over to that right fullback position, and McDonald to slot in at centre half alongside Carrigan. Decent shift from Thomas Karlovic, who was kept plenty busy throughout the day. Similarly for Fraser Dunlop, who was able to get forward at moments in that first half. Haven't seen nearly as much of him in this second 45. Maybe part of Marian Svitkovic's decision to withdraw him. Here's Tommy Semi. It's a decent run. It falls into the path of Anastovsky. Well, that could have worked out very nicely for Melbourne Knights indeed. Final effort, though, well wide of Pierce Clark's goal. This is Latham. Jovchevsky winning back the ball. Now it's sent forward by Tsakopoulos for Semi. Semi looks central towards Anastovsky. And taking no chances is Giannakopoulos as he sends the ball behind for a Knights corner. Swinging delivery sent in at the front post by Kim. Now Atharenos can charge forward on the counter. Sesnik is the man making the most daring run. Really important touch though from Walter Georgiou. That clearance is only as far as Athieu. Deemed that the striker controlled the ball with his arm though. So a chance for King Kenny to grab himself a hat-trick. Very quickly curtailed by the referee's whistle. Latham very nearly winning it back from Walter Georgiou. Does enough though to get it back to one of the young substitutes in the form of McDonald. Here's Bauer though for Dandenong City. Thinks of going on his left. Eventually does. It's a good central ball and a wonderful finish from Jamie Latham. Will Bauer yet again plays a key role. And Latham makes it 2 goals in 2 games against Melbourne Knights this season. 4 for Dandenong City this afternoon. And they are marching towards 3 very valuable points at Frank Holohan Soccer Complex. Melbourne Knights have just not had an answer for Will Bauer, whether he's scoring or setting them up. And Latham went to hug some of those supporters on that far side. He's had a really good game too, Jamie Latham. By the looks of things, the floodgates have very much opened. That goal, Latham's 5th of the campaign, joins Will Bauer in jumping to 5 goals this season with their efforts this afternoon. Still plenty of time to improve upon that though, as Latham looks to add a second the very next minute. Saw the idea with Giannakopoulos in the middle of the park, but Walter Georgiou has been industrious all afternoon. Now Athieu has Atharenos. Important intervention from Ben Carrigan. Bill Theodoropoulos looking to keep the energy high in his team. Having survived an early scare there. Just about in cruise control, you sense at the moment. They'd love as many goals as they can this afternoon as well, just to put their goal difference well and truly beyond the reach of Hume City. In the event that Hume were to win and Dandy City to draw next week and the two teams were to be level on points, Dandy City would have themselves a really healthy goal difference advantage. Knights now looking to grab themselves the second goal of the afternoon, headed clear as far as McDonald. That was some nice moves from Sikopoulos. Inaba doing enough to win it back though for Dandenong City. Melbourne Knights readying another substitution at the next break of play. Nayan Nair readying to make his bow. Phil Theodoropoulos, I think, though, is fairly comfortable with the 11 that he has on the pitch at the moment, with things going the way that they are. Latham quick to close down and overzealous, which will prompt the referee to show Latham the yellow card. So with that, the substitution will be made. Nair onto the park. And he takes the place of Filip Jevchevsky. Difficult afternoon in the middle of the park. Heavily involved, Jevchevsky, as most of the players in that part of the field have been. This withdrawal making way for Nair, who looks to have slotted into a defensive role for the moment, in that left fullback position. That's paved the way for this man, Stephen Lawless, to head into the centre of midfield. So Ben Carrigan, accompanied by a trio of young defenders. As his team looks to see out the remainder of this game. 4-1, currently the score. Dandy City wanting more. Atharinos with the run. It's a good run as well. Central for Athu. Kinketti has a hat-trick. Bang, bang, and bang again. And Dandy City have 5. Well, they're certainly not short of attacking intent, even with the result looking more or less beyond doubt at this point. Here is Lawless for Melbourne Knights as they look for a quick response. More calls for, I believe, handball from the players, but Melbourne Knights will have themselves a corner. there to be a second of the afternoon for Melbourne Knights. That ball comes out to Nair, who looks inboard to Semi. First touch sees the ball get a little bit away from him, but recovered in time, Tommy Semi, and was dragged down. Morton goes himself this time. That was a decent effort as well. Had Pearce Clark diving, but narrowly high and wide of the frame. It's those 3 goals for Kenny Athieu this afternoon, taking his season tally to 12. These things stand equal 4th on the Golden Boot race. The one behind Manny Agwek and a couple behind Joe Guest. No one's looking like catching Bulljuach at the top of the Golden Boot standings. Kenny Athieu very much extending his lead as Dandy City's leading scorer. Well, as things stand with the 5-1 scoreline, Dandy City going 2 points ahead of Hume City, as well as to a goal difference of +8. And with Hume City sitting on -2, that's a 10-goal turnaround. So more or less guaranteeing that the only way that Dandy City will miss finals this year is if they lose to Melbourne Victory next week, an already relegated Melbourne Victory, and Hume City win at Churchill Reserve against St Albans. Tommy Semi's shot there, the deflection on the way through, taking the sting out of it. And for the first time this afternoon, Dandenong City readying some substitutions of their own. As we head into the final 20 or so minutes of this game. That ball through was well read and intercepted by McDonald. Now Kim, winning back the ball in a dangerous spot. Atharinos has space on the left, but he's offside. No doubt if you're Tim Atharinos, you're very keen to get yourself on the score sheet when it's turned into a bit of a goal fest of an afternoon for your teammates. Athieu with the hat-trick, Latham and Bauer also on the score sheet.
Bill, the bloke's not ready. We're playing. Be quiet.
I was just listening into some of the discussion between Dandenong City coaching staff and our 4th official, Terry Constandelis, about the timing of the substitution. Bill Theodoropoulos asked to calm it down as his team waits to introduce Jackson Lino and Diego Cooper in the next break of play. Here's a chance for Bauer. Sliding effort from Carrigan, sends it wide. Nair did well to use the support of his captain Lawless. Giannakopoulos up to Latham. Ball one back as Bramwell looks to send it to Semi. Jack Webster always looking fairly comfortable. Well, the conversation between Dandenong City's coaching staff and the officiating team is continuing. It's remaining very animated as they attempt to have these substitutions made. And Corey Sewell and Tom Giannakopoulos look to be the two players who will be withdrawn for the final 15 minutes of regulation plus stoppage. So a straight swap with Lino taking Sewell's position. And Diego Cuba taking up his post in the middle of the park. A milestone afternoon for Diego Cuba as well, his 50th NPL appearance. And he'll play out the remainder of this game. The former Moreland City man. With his team well and truly on track for a big 3 points. Melbourne Knights have themselves a throw. Nair. As Bauer closing down the space. He's looked pretty composed on the ball, Nayan Nair. You see, fairly outsized by the likes of Will Bauer, who is a real beast of an attacking player, but on the ball, looking fairly composed and technically sound, Nayan Nair. Here he is once more. This time sending it all the way back to his goalkeeper. Melbourne Knights at the next break of play will have themselves another couple of substitutions. Dandy City as well will make further use of their bench. First though, Tommy Semi has Brownwell before Nair sends it into the box. That one sets a task for Ben Carrigan, who is there in plenty of time. Brownwell getting there just ahead of Webster with the flick on header. Now Athieu has Latham making the run, as well as Atharinos, but Carrigan composed defending from the former Bentley Green. Well, the Georges up to Anastovsky. Anastovsky remaining clear of Inaba. Now Walter Georges again. Moved out to that right-hand side. Gets past one, almost to second in Diego Cuba. And there's a long-range attempt coming in from Anastovsky, but it flies well over the crossbar. So we can see a number of new faces introduced to the game now, a couple from each team. And the last of the starting defence will be replaced as Ben Carrigan is withdrawn. He's replaced by Adrian Gruganovic. And it's the end of the day for Kenny Athieu and Will Bauer as well into the contest. Come Malik Abuspa as well as Brad Plant. The other substitution for Melbourne Knights, meanwhile, seeing Philip Martic introduced for the remainder of the contest. And looking as if Walter Georges is the player to have been withdrawn. Dandy City looking to add another goal to their tally. Just about every time they go forward, you think they might score at the moment. Here is the man making his 50th NPL appearance, Diego Cuba with the cross. Cleared out as far as Latham. And Cuba will get another chance to deliver into the area. That's a better ball! And a brilliant finish from Brad Plant. Right off the bench and onto the score sheet. Side-footing it perfectly into the bottom corner. A lovely delivery sent in by Cuba. And Brad Plant joins the scoring party. That is 4th goal of the campaign. And Dandenong City have 6 goals in this Croatian derby. Donny Gerdic will make his bow in this game as well. Perhaps now in the current break of play, or may wait for the next. It will be now as Jack Webster is making his way to the sidelines. And mid-season signing Donny Gerdic, brought in from Sydney Olympic. He'll slot in at the heart of defence for the final minutes of this one. 6 goals for Dandenong City. A lovely finish from Brad Plant. As the 2 substitutes combined, Cuba with the assist. Fair to say that the substitutions have injected some new energy into this one. Here's a Boosba. Skips past one and almost another. The attempted clearance doesn't get far. Gabriel Matti had to get there to clean things up. Matti sends it up to Tommy Semi, who's continued to work hard all throughout the match. At times it's been a fairly thankless task. Well, they've got 6 goals to their name now, Dandenong City. It does feel like a somewhat unfair reflection of the game. They've certainly been the better team, Dandy City. But in the second half, the Melbourne Knights' defence has largely fallen apart. The chopping and changing with a number of new players introduced at various points, no doubt making it tough for the team to maintain their shape. And they'll have to defend again here as Boosba has the supporting run made by Cuba. Looks to cut inside, falls to a Boosba. Thought about taking on the shot, instead sends it through to Cuba, who looks to stand it up. Now Lino. Sliding challenge coming in from, to be McDonald. Now Gerdic across to Inaba, whose run of goal scoring looks like it's going to come to an end this afternoon. There is still time to make it 3 straight games with a goal for Gaku Inaba. He can maybe get himself up for a corner or free kick. The Renos thought about sending the release ball for Sesnik down the right-hand side. Instead, goes back to Pierce Clark between the sticks. Stepping out of defence is Inaba. Has Latham down the left, and Lino as well getting forward. Jackson Lino, the cross. There's a boost bar. 7 goals for Dandenong City. And Malika Boosba off the bench. And he's got himself a goal at NPL level. Jackson Lino was daring with his run. No one was able to go with him from the Knights' defence. And Malika Boosba, it's a memorable day for him as he adds his name to the Dandenong City score sheet in NPL men's fixture. Well, it's turned into a fairly comfortable afternoon for Dandenong City. Plenty of good feeling going around the team at the moment. Cross inside towards Bramwell was headed clear, but Malika Boosba, just 17 years of age, has his first NPL goal. Well, it's been a torrid season for Melbourne Knights. This afternoon into this evening, just another chapter of that narrative. Having conceded 7 goals now. They continue to add to their tally of goals conceded this campaign. Already had the most coming into this weekend. There was some promising signs in last week's draw against Hume. They looked pretty good the first 30 minutes or so in this game, or at the very least competitive, but have since fallen right away, as has been the case all too often this campaign. Well, this Dandenong City team, they had that little slip up last time out against Port Melbourne, but having matched it with all of the big hitters in this league in the last handful of weeks, be a brave person to put a cap on what they can achieve come September. Drawing away at Preston, drawing away at Heidelberg, and away at Avondale. It's a seriously impressive track record, and for a team that will not be playing any of their finals at home, they would need to be able to produce their best football on the road. They've proven that they're very capable of doing that, including at some of the most difficult away tests in this league. That ball centrally is cut out, and perhaps an opportunity for Melbourne Knights, but Martich's pass well overhit for Anastovsky. Atharinos trying to show us some clever touch. One almost falling into the path of Cuba, but getting there just ahead of him was McDonald. It's a nice turn. The ball through from Morton, though, was met by Pierce Clark. Well, Melbourne Knights, they haven't stopped their attacking intent. Certainly part of why they've found themselves on the receiving end of 7 goals. They have continued to throw bodies forward. They're doing so even now. Just a couple minutes left in the 90. Semi with the cross. Bramwell closest to it, but Leno was the man with the header. And not for the first time this afternoon, Darcy Anastovsky fires well over the top of the crossbar. It's not been his day. It's not been Melbourne Knights' day, or indeed their season. Just that one time in 1963, Croatia were relegated from the Victorian State League. It was also the Preston Croat breakaway team that went down in 1960. These Melbourne Knights were the precursor to Melbourne Knights. SC Croatia were in the second tier that campaign, and then eventually the two teams reunified and took another step towards the Melbourne Knights team that we all know. Tommy Semi pulling the trigger. Melbourne Knights team that have achieved so much on both the Victorian and national stage over the decades. In 2026, they will be playing in Victoria's second tier. Dandenong City will be the team flying the flag for Croatia in the top flight. And Terry Constandelos mercifully puts up just the single minute of second half stoppage time. So perhaps time for one more opportunity for Melbourne Knights to grab themselves some consolation. Here's Anastovsky, but his afternoon's not going to get much better as the offside flag denies his look in towards the penalty area. Well, after a competitive first 45, Dandenong City have proven far too strong for Melbourne Knights tonight, running over the top of their visitors. In the end, the result today played no part in confirming Melbourne Knights' relegation with Altona Magic's win at Port Melbourne. But as the final whistle goes, Melbourne Knights are relegated. Dandenong City keep their finals hopes more than just alive. They're in pole position to secure a second consecutive finals berth since being promoted to the top flight of Victorian football a couple of seasons ago. They'll head into their final game against Melbourne Victory knowing that a draw will almost certainly be enough. A win will guarantee them 6th position and a crack at what could well be a Dandenong Derby elimination final in a few weeks' time. Melbourne Knights head into their final game against Altona Magic, just playing 4 positions with Melbourne Knights and, with Port Melbourne and with Melbourne Victory. But it's been a dour afternoon into evening in a frustrating, disappointing season for Melbourne Knights this campaign. And they've been well beaten by Dandenong City this afternoon. Kenny Atthew with the hat-trick, the headline act, full-time score at Frank Holohan Soccer Complex. Dandenong City 7, Melbourne Knights 1.